Hey guys, it's Shannon from That DIY Couple, and today we are going to talk about the new book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I'm going to give you a really great summary of this book and some practical tips for how you can hack your habits to yield great improvements in your life. So I recently read this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, and it follows up on another book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Guys, this is a great book. I would give it a solid 9 out of 10, and I would strongly recommend that you check it out. The book gives really great advice for hacking your habits in a way that's going to cause long-term change in your life. So the basic takeaway from the book is that habits are the compound interest of life. Just like if you sock away money in your retirement account and don't think about it, over time it will grow to a much larger sum than what you could have imagined as you put it away. Small changes lead to big shifts. So he uses the example that if an airline pilot leaves Seattle and makes a small 3% course correction when he's aiming for New York, by the time that he gets to the East Coast, he's going to end up in Washington, D.C. and not New York City. So one small 3% change of his steering wheel in point A leads over time to a large difference in outcome in terms of where we end up. Another huge takeaway from this book is that goals don't matter as much as systems. So every great Olympic athlete wants to win the Olympics. Everybody has the goal of being rich and thin and beautiful, etc., etc. We all have goals. The difference between the people who end up winning and the people who don't achieve their goals is that the people who achieve their goals have developed better systems to keep them accountable and keep them becoming the people that they want to be. Another huge takeaway from this book is that great habits are identity-based. So there's this identity feedback loop where what we repeatedly do makes us become who we are, and vice versa. So who we are influences what we do, or rather, who we believe we are, because our identity is constantly shifting, and one way to change who you are is to change what you do. So you may never have run a mile in your entire life, but if every morning you put on your running shoes and get up and run for 5 minutes, and then run for 10 minutes, and then eventually run for 15 minutes, and build your way up to 20 or 30 minutes, by the end of 2 or 3 years, you're going to be firmly telling yourself, I am a runner. Conversely, as you start to believe that I am a runner, you will want to continue running. So we have this identity feedback loop, and the takeaway is that we all try to focus on the finish line. I want to lose 100 pounds. I want to sleep 8 hours every night. I want to save 80% of my salary. That's mine. But if you are focused on the finish line, you ignore the more important question, which is focusing on the start line, focusing on setting up your environment, your household, your cues, your processes in order to maximize the chances that you will arrive where you want to go. So a takeaway from the book is that we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. So the whole focus of the rest of the book is teaching you how to perfect your systems. The way that you can perfect your systems is by taking advantage of a behavior loop called the habit loop. The habit loop consists of cue, craving, response, and reward. So what does this mean? Cue is the thing that triggers your interest in doing the habit. The craving is what you want to achieve when you do the habit. The response is the habit itself, and the reward is the good way that you feel when the habit is finished. Let's take an example of something that I do automatically every time I wake up. I wake up and I go to the bathroom. The cue is waking up. Oh, it's time to go to the bathroom. I do this all the time. The craving is, I want to get rid of this stuff inside me and feel better. That response is actually peeing, and the reward is feeling better and feeling like I've started my day. It's a little bit of a gross one. Let's choose a better one. When I was overweight, I used to be triggered by seeing Dunkin' Donuts to go in and order a breakfast sandwich on my way to work. I might have already had breakfast even, but when I walked by, something about the branding and the memories of having done so repeatedly made me go in and order a sausage, egg, and cheese breakfast sandwich from there. Now, the cue was seeing Dunkin'. The craving was to feel the delicious taste of the food in my mouth and to feel like a sense of energy and fullness and wellness to start my day. The response was actually going to order the sandwich and eating it, and the reward was, for a period of time, I would feel really good after having eaten it because the processed food in it would trigger my insulin and trigger my blood sugar to rise, and I would feel better than when I wasn't eating like that. You guys all know that I've lost a ton of weight and I don't eat like this anymore. But even our bad habits take advantage of this cue, craving, response, reward habit loop. Now I have a good habit in place of that. On Saturday mornings, I wake up excited to go to the store and buy my food for the week ahead so that I can spend a couple hours on the weekend doing things that I enjoy, like watching Netflix and preparing my food for the week ahead. The cue is, it's Saturday morning, it's time to do my weekend meal prep. The craving is, I want to get set up for the week ahead so that I can continue with my weight loss. The response is actually going and getting the food and doing the prep. And the reward is the great feeling that I have when I see all my mason jars aligned and I post my celebratory picture on Instagram and I feel like I've done something amazing for my health and for my well-being. So the book provides a lot of feedback as to how you can hack this habit loop to maximize good habits and break bad habits. In order to maximize a good habit, for the cue portion, you want to make it obvious. This means setting out your workout gear so that it's the first thing you see when you wake up. Having something that triggers a visual cue for you to start doing the habit. For the inverse of that, you want to make it invisible. So the research has shown that people who don't have the same vices as you and me and other people are oftentimes just less prompted to do bad things because they are in better environments. So there was a really interesting study that was done on guys who were addicted to heroin during the Vietnam War. They found that a large percentage, something like 90%, when they came back to the United States, just were not addicted to heroin anymore because it wasn't readily available. They didn't have all the stress and anxiety of war, and they were just in a totally different environment. So changing our environment to eliminate cues that trigger bad habits is a hugely successful strategy to getting rid of bad habits. So a good example is that you're gonna have a hard time resisting them if you keep a bunch of cookies on your kitchen counter. Don't do it. Get rid of them. Get rid of the cue. Make it invisible to break a bad habit. The next part of the habit loop is the craving. So in order to build a good habit, you want to make it attractive. So we're social animals. By watching this video, you're socializing yourself to the idea that focusing on your habits might be a good idea. That becomes an attractive proposition. Surround yourself with people who embody the habit that you want to embody and copy them. You can also do things like buy something that's going to make you excited to do your habit. So one example is that I bought a really nice sleep mask, and that gets me excited about going to sleep. So the inverse of making it attractive To eliminate a bad habit, you want to make the craving unattractive. So I'm trying really hard to sleep better. I've just been reading a bunch of articles on all of the negative outcomes about too little sleep, and that starts to make me realize that this is a really unattractive proposition, staying up late, watching Netflix. I don't want to do it. I want to live a long and healthy life, and losing sleep becomes unattractive. The next part of the habit feedback loop is the response. Now this is the actual habit. The key to building a good habit is to make it easy. There's 3 different ways that you can do this. The first is to investigate any one-time fixes that you can do to make your habit easy. So a good example is if you want to save, you could one time enroll in your company's 401k and check that you want to have, say, 20% of your salary allocated every time that you get paid to your 401k. Now this is something that you're going to do one time, and then for the rest of your tenure at your company, you're not going to think about it. You're not going to have to do anything like log in and manually transfer. And you're going to be automatically building good savings habits. Now the first time your paycheck changes, you might be like missing it, right? You might have to scramble, you might have to change less, but soon your behavior will adopt and you'll start to spend the amount in your checking account. The next thing you can do is utilize the power of technology to make your habit easier. So a good example is if you were trying to build a healthy eating and meal prep habit, you could set up a grocery delivery service. This is a one-time thing. You could have it set up to deliver you bananas and apples and pears and salad every week or every 2 weeks so that you always have fruit and vegetables on hand. The third thing that you can do to make your habits easier is to utilize the 2-minute rule. Now this says that everything that you might possibly want to do can be broken down into a 2-minute starter version. So if you want to run a marathon, the easiest and smallest fragment of that might be to just lace up your running shoes. So if you were to lace up your running shoes every morning for a week, it would take less than 2 minutes, and the next week you could add putting on your running shorts and your running shirt. By that time, you've gotten yourself up, you've gotten yourself awake, and you've started the habit of becoming a runner. Even if in week 3 you were just to run for 5 minutes, that would be an incredible accomplishment because you'd be laying those fiber tracks in your brain where you're going to be a runner within a year or 2. You can incrementally increase 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes until it's not feeling like a chore and it's something that you start to enjoy. This is the idea that the hardest part of starting a new habit is just that, starting. We have a lot of inertia, and once we start actually going, we end up liking what we're doing, but it's really hard to start. So you can trick your mind a little bit by saying, you know what, I'm only going to do this for 2 minutes. It's going to be super easy. Anyone can do anything for 2 minutes. So I'm trying to build a habit where I write every night in my journal. I'm going to be promising myself that no matter what, I'll just write for 2 minutes. It's not a long time. I'll write 1 sentence. Just to build the habit. Now, the inverse of this is to make it difficult. So if you're trying to break a habit, make it really hard to do. So one example is that you might want to have somebody change your social media passwords once a week or once a day, and you can only get the login at specified times. Another example is that you might want to uninstall certain apps from your phone if you feel like they are not adding value to your life and you're using them too much. Make it hard to do what you need to do. Some people talk about putting all their credit cards in the freezer and having to thaw them out before they're able to make a purchase on them. That's a good way of making it difficult and creating some obstacles and some friction between you and your bad habits. The final step of the habit loop is the reward. Now for a bad habit, you want to make things unsatisfying. You can do this by using a habit commitment or a habit contract where you say to yourself, I'm going to make the consequences of my bad habit immediately feelable. Because just like good habits, bad habits take time to compound. If you work out once, you're not all of a sudden going to have six-pack abs. That will take time. The good benefit of a good habit of working out takes a long time before you reach a tipping point and the habit becomes positive in your life. Just like that, the negative habit of doing something like smoking doesn't immediately give you cancer. Instead, smokers often feel a sense of relief and a sense of relaxation from the nicotine in gum. People who eat poorly feel an immediate sense of feeling slightly better because they've eaten something really heavy and something that spikes their blood sugar. They don't see the long-term consequence of being overweight and health problems that come with it. So our brain prioritizes immediate rewards over long-term rewards. And they prioritizes immediate punishment or immediate negative consequences over long-term. So we might overestimate the chance of, say, an airplane crashing, but underestimate the chance of getting dietary diseases, which is, quite frankly, the way that most of us are going to die. So in order to hack the reward portion of the habit loop, in order to make a bad habit undesirable, unsatisfying, you need to make the negative consequence of your bad habit more present, or any negative consequence. So you could create a habit contract where you say, if I don't work out every Tuesday, I will pay my workout partner $20 for them to use whatever way they want. This gives you a negative financial implication if you don't keep your habit, and it also gives you social pressure because you're going to have to tell somebody who you care about that you've done something bad or something good. In order to make a good habit satisfying and hack the reward portion of the habit loop, give yourself an immediate reward for doing things that you want to encourage. So the easiest way to do this is to use a habit tracker. We all know how satisfying it is to check something off of our to-do list. It's because we're getting a real sense of accomplishment when we make that little check mark. So you can use an app on your phone to track good habits, or you could, for example, pay yourself $5 into your savings account, into a vacation fund, every time that you forego spending $5 on something that you normally would. This gives you a sense of immediate accomplishment and is likely to solidify your good habit. The 4 big takeaways from this book are that habits are the compound interest of life. Goals don't matter as much as systems. Good habits are identity-based, and you can utilize the habit loop of cue, craving, response, and reward to either build good habits or break bad ones. Guys, I love having you here. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit subscribe and comment down below. I'm really curious to know more about each of you, and I'd love to know which good habits you'd like to build and which bad habits you'd like to break. If you liked the format of this video and you want more book summaries, please let me know down below. Thanks so much for being here, you guys. Until next time, do good and always make things better.